the top reason people are using ChatGPT right now is coaching and therapy, which is kind of scary because that was not what it was last year. But I was talking to my therapist as an example. She was like, therapists are scared that their job's going to go away from AI. And I was like, well, let's talk about it. Let's like walk through it, right? Like, yes, that could happen. Yes, someone could ask ChatGPT to help them with their anxiety or their stress or what have you. I go, but if I'm a therapist, I'm going to be thinking about, okay, how can I use AI to help me?
Good morning, HR. I'm Mike Coffey, president of Imperative, bulletproof background checks with fast and friendly service. And this is the podcast where I talk to business leaders about bringing people together to create value for shareholders, customers, and the community. And today I'm joined by Jodi Brandstetter to explore the combination of design thinking with artificial intelligence to create more empathetic and impactful people processes. Jodi is the founder of Lean Effective Talent Strategies, through which she helps small to mid-sized companies modernize their talent strategies. Jodi is certified in design thinking and is the author of Hire by Design and HR by Design. Welcome to Good Morning HR, Jodi.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're talking, we initially, when we started talking, we're talking about, let's talk about AI in HR. And one of the issues that I know my clients run into is their CEO comes to them and says, start using AI in HR. And it's just like, okay, but what do you want us to do with it? And how, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, I think, when my clients call and say, what do we do? So I like what you've done around design thinking and integrating AI in there. So let's just start with what design thinking is as a problem solving technique and how maybe it's different than other problem solving processes we've used in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So, design thinking is a methodology. The goal is to be able to solve challenges by looking at both the business lens as well as the people lens. And so, it just to me is like the no brainer methodology for HR. We work with the people to help our businesses thrive. So,
Right.
it really is focused on understanding the problem through the human who's having the problem, right? So that's the empathy observation, but then taking that and being creative and doing ideation, brainstorming to come up with hundreds of ideas to then pinpoint a few ideas to prototype. So test it, see if it's going to work while always having the human in mind, which means you're asking them to test it, you're getting feedback from them, and then, once you implement that solution, the goal is then to iterate. So continue to improve it. I think sometimes that's something HR needs a lot is that we can't just stick with the same thing. We got to always be iterating to make sure that is working for the business and the people.
And so I think, especially in small to medium sized organizations, and I'm the owner of one of those, and often the leaders, myself included, we see a problem, we identify and quickly say, okay, there's the problem. Our intuition is often right, but sometimes we're missing something that we don't know we're missing. And we run off and here's the answer, implement this and let's go. And so with this design thinking, we've got to tap the brakes a little bit and say, okay, this is a problem I see. Let's get more data. So it's not just anecdotal. It's not just what I as the leader see or the HR leader or whoever identifies, hey, we got a problem here. Because we might just be solving one piece of a problem or and ignoring the rest or making something else worse. And then we go through and work with people to come up with the ideas. And then let's test it. Let's see if it works. And then maybe put that prototype in, and then it goes back to the old, plan, do, check, act, right? Just keep reiterating on it as we go. So I think the big difference in design thinking, as I see it, is making sure all the stakeholders, all the people with input in identifying the problem and solving the problem are really included at the front rather than just waiting till they put in repair tickets after the fact.
Oh, 100%. I can't tell you how many times when I was in corporate America, I was solving problems, but I wasn't solving problems for the right people. I
Mm.
was focused on my recruiters and their perspective. I wasn't thinking about my candidates, or I wasn't thinking about my hiring managers. And so this really helps you consider everyone who's going to be impacted by, fixing this challenge that you have, and that you're really fixing it for everyone, not just maybe one group.
Yeah, and our processes are, I mean, they impact so many people, and our people processes especially don't work if they're not working for the people that are involved in doing them. So when that CEO comes to HR and says implement HR, or implement AI, what's your response to that?
So, first, I would tell the HR person not to panic, to take a deep breath. And then I would tell them that you want to start with one problem, start with using one AI tool, try it out, see if there's success, and then you can start to maybe build it a little bit more. So I would be really looking at what's a challenge that you have in your group or with your organization that you think AI might be able to solve, and just start there. Just one. It could be communication. It could be, streamlining a process. I mean, just one challenge, only one. Don't go too crazy.
And I think it's like the science. I started my HR career as a systems analyst in HR, and so I think often the idea, okay, let's try this new tool, and if it fails or if it doesn't solve the problem, we see the project as a failure rather than saying, let's look at this project. Okay, what did we learn from it? Okay, we learned, first of all, this tool's not the right tool. We're using a hammer when we need a scalpel or something. So we learned that, and maybe we learned something about technology. Maybe we learned more about the process. So it was, no effort is wasted in the process. Maybe you don't solve the problem, but you can still learn from it. And I think people are nervous when they start talking about AI because they don't know what the outcomes are going to be, and they don't know what problems they're going to have, and so they're really hesitant. So picking one problem, I think, is right. And then, I've told my clients, just prioritize your problems. What's the thing you can put the smallest effort in to get the most lift out of, and then figure out what the solution is. And maybe AI is part of that, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's some other process that you've got. Maybe it's training for hiring managers. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you can incorporate AI in some of that, but AI is not going to be the driver. And sometimes AI may be the driver. It'll make you so much more efficient. We can move our limited resources as far as staff goes to solving better problems, because AI can make more of the groundwork and the basics easier to accomplish. So when you're talking about plugging AI into the design thinking process, what does that typically look like?
So it can go in a couple different routes, right? So it could be, it's the solution right at the very end that you decide there's an AI tool that can solve that problem. So that is like the no brainer way the AI can be put in. But throughout the process, you can use AI through the steps of design thinking. So AI can help you with, for example, creating personas of your employee or of a candidate to really kind of get to know them. You can, pull data and then be able to do really quick analysis with AI to really understand your employees. So be able to take that survey results or that best place to work data that you get, and then have AI be able to give you themes from that so you can really understand it. Um, AI is one of my favorite friends to brainstorm with. So I use it for ideation all the time. And it could be, it's literally brainstorming with me, or it could be I dump all my ideas in it and it helps me find the themes and the common threads. And so it helps me connect those dots so I can see the ideas that I have that might work hand in hand. So it really is something that you can be touching throughout the whole design thinking process.
Yeah, I really like it for the ideation piece, because what I really like is when I'm in the car, I will turn on the Chat GPT chat bot where it actually talks to you. And while I'm driving, I'm just asking it questions. It's giving me feedback. And then you can have pretty much a conversation,
Mhm.
and you get a transcript of it later, so you don't have to remember what was said. But it can be really helpful in just generating ideas, and you can dig deeper into them. And sometimes they're like really obvious things that, yeah, well, any second year HR rep would have thought of that. I'm looking for something deeper. Or sometimes it's something that I haven't considered, and it walks me down a path that maybe is the right direction to go.
Absolutely. And a lot of times we are like companies or departments of one. And so it can feel really hard to do design thinking when you're only one person. And so if you can think of ChatGPT as your second person in the design thinking process, it can really help people feel a bit more comfortable utilizing design thinking, even if they're, a department of one.
And then on the back end, how often are you actually seeing AI be part of the final solution that comes out?
I mean, I do a lot of like I utilize design thinking a lot for HR tech. And
Mhm.
so that
Certainly.
is a top priority. Like if we're going to be right implementing a brand new HR tech, I want to know what kind of AI components does that tech have, or is it an actual AI tech that we're looking at? So it does, if you're really looking at processes, it's going to hopefully be a part of that solution at the end. Um, but it can vary as far as like how whatever challenge I'm facing, right? If it's a communication one, it might be AI, or it might be nope, we need that human touch, and I need you as the recruiter, for example, to pick up the phone and call that candidate and give them an update. So it can really vary.
And that may be the solution. That may be the answer to the CEO who's saying, "How are you implementing AI?" It may not be the solution. It may be everything that led us to the solution. And so it might not be that we're conducting our interviews with some AI tech that's sending an avatar to an applicant and having a conversation with them, and those kind of tools that I'm still skeptical of. I think they're going to be a real challenge on adoption from the candidate side and the comfort level with those. At least in the near term, it may be that we find that introverts in the younger generation may like talking to an avatar more than they do a real person. Maybe it's easier, but again, you have to know your audience, you have to know your stakeholders to understand that. When we're talking about using AI, either on the front end and ideation process, and maybe collecting data and analyzing the data, or implementing it as part of a solution, what are the ethical consider? Let's get to the practical in a minute, but let's just start with the ethical considerations around using AI in the scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people just assume that AI has no biases, and it does. They could be, added. They could be actually implemented into the AI through their
Right.
algorithms and everything. So the one thing I always tell my clients if they're looking at AI is you want to find responsible AI vendors. You want them to be very open about how they're creating their algorithms, and being willing to take your feedback as far as if you see concerns with what data you're getting from their technology. So I would be really mindful and take the time and energy to ensure whatever AI vendor that you're going to be utilizing or technology that that they're doing what's right. And then there's also the piece that there's so much we don't know yet about AI and what it can do. I mean, you talk about like an avatar interviewing someone. I use Hey Jen all the time to create my
I
own
do too.
avatar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love it, but oh my gosh, what could happen if my avatar says something I don't believe in? Or what if someone takes my my face and my voice from
Right.
me? I mean, those things are really scary. And so again, I think it's all about understanding your business, understanding the risk level you have, and really understanding, what could happen if you move forward with a tool, and be really open again to iterate. Maybe you decide it's not, you don't feel comfortable with it, then stop using it. Or it could be it gets better, and you love it. But I think it's really being curious enough to understand the tools that you're going to use and really ask good questions to make sure they are utilizing responsible AI.
Yeah, at last week's Oklahoma HR conference, I made two presentations, one on ethical and practical considerations, and one was an hour long live demo using ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. Gemini, some of the image generation tools, and people were really shocked at the end of the. I saw the eyes get big, especially when I did the Hey Gen demo, which is my avatar and just typing in the text, and it spoke to the group live right there. Um, and so I think there's a lot of fear around it, and some of that's just fear that I don't understand what it's doing, I don't understand how to use it, but I think some of it is, am I working myself out of a job, or am I working my head count down in HR? What's your response? For a while there, I think we were all saying, well, you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose your job to somebody using AI. But I think less and less we're seeing that no, people are actually going to lose their job to AI. I mean, there's going to be, we may need one HR rep where we needed four before, and there are going to be maybe some positions that just like there used to be typing pools when I started in HR 100 years ago, or corporate America 100 years ago. There were people who did nothing but type memos for the bosses all day long. Those jobs don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at today's HR positions, 100%, some of those roles are going to go away. But also, I'm not sure if this is the right number, so don't quote me on it, but I think they say 65% of the jobs that are going to be coming in the next 3 to 5 years are jobs that we don't even know about yet.
Right.
So guess what? Some of those jobs are going to be HR jobs that we just don't know about yet. So, if I give any kind of advice to someone who's in HR, who's in a career search, or just trying to have that longevity in our industry, I would still be telling them really understand AI, really understand how whatever's changing in the future of work, be a part of it, because that's going to help you evolve into that next job, right? So like that person doing memos that whole time, right, they're typing the letters and everything. What if they started being really good at editing and all of a sudden now they're an editor, right? That was a job that was still needed once the memo typers went away. So you have to evolve. I mean, I'm going to have to say it again. Iteration, iteration, iteration. We as humans have to iterate just as much as the technology and everything else that's going on in the world.
And I was listening to I think it was the Plain English podcast, which is one of my favorites. And just in the last week or two, and he had on a guest about AI, and I can't think of the name of the host of Plain English, but he's an Atlantic writer, but he was pretty nervous and skeptical of AI. And his guest said something that really resonated with me, that there's never been a major technology that, first of all, didn't displace some people, but also didn't create many more jobs than it displaced. And I think that we just have to realize that's going to happen. And the people who I think are going to be most negatively impacted are the ones who aren't willing to make the time and personal investment in learning the new tools and becoming comfortable with them, and actively finding ways to become more efficient and to augment their own performance with it.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And I think a lot of these jobs that are going to be created or can continue to be really important are going to require the human side of human resources, the empathy, the ability to connect with people, to have a calm, rational, but also, understanding, connected conversation with someone. That's not going away anytime soon. At least not in the next 6 months. AI isn't going to replace it yet. Maybe the robots will show up at our doors, but I think it's a while before, if ever, that people are really comfortable either interviewing for a position, or getting all their training, or getting performance feedback, coaching from an AI tool. Although there are good tools out there already to help some of that. But I think there's a point where, especially on the people side, the soft skill, what we call the soft skills that are really the hard skills side of things, where people are going to continue to be really a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I did see that the top reason people are using ChatGPT right now is coaching and therapy, which is kind of scary because that was not what it was last year. But I was talking to my therapist as an example. She was like, therapists are scared that their
Mhm.
job's going to go away from AI. And I was like, well, let's talk about it. Let's like walk through it, right? Like, yes, that could happen. Yes, someone could ask ChatGPT to help them with their anxiety or their stress or what have you. I go, but if I'm a therapist, I'm going to be thinking about, okay, how can I use AI to help me? Like, how cool would it be if I, do my 4 weeks, or however many times, or every other week, or how often you talk to your patient, if I had my own AI chatbot that was based off of my knowledge, my expertise, that a patient can actually talk to, and I get questions every day, 24/7. And then as the therapist, I can pull that data and review it before my next session. And all of a sudden, AI is my assistant. It's helping me in my role. Now, my therapist joked that she still writes on paper and pen and paper. So she's like, I'm not there. But if you start to like be innovative with how you can connect AI to your job, it
Mhm.
really can be an add-on to you, to your company, if you just are willing to kind of think outside the box.
I hope your therapist gave you a discount since you gave her therapy for that during the session. I think I think that's exactly right, though. There are meditation apps out there that really help you walk through setting an intention and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's not going to do the meditation for you, and it's not going to do the work for you if you're using it for to start a therapy conversation. And you know, there's still a place where if I'm struggling with something, I want to talk to a person. I don't, maybe it can remind me what else could be true. I mean, that's the question that always comes up. And when I'm thinking through things like that, what else could be true? Maybe that's helpful. But really diving down and understanding my patterns and recognizing my behavior uh, is probably something I want to do with a real person.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that again, there might be a group of people who might be different than that, and how amazing is it that they now have a tool, right? If someone didn't feel comfortable going to therapy, they now have these apps and things that can really help them. So again, I feel like what's happening with technology is just really a positive for us.
Right.
um, if we keep moving forward in a positive way, it can absolutely become very scary very fast. You talked about like the avatar interviewing. Well, there are avatars getting jobs right now. They're using,
Yeah.
stealing
Deep
identities.
fakes. Yeah.
I mean, it can be
Yeah.
scary. So you have to be prepared for those things too. So you have to be able to identify what's working, what's not working, or how to see if something looks odd or off.
Mhm.
And that way you look into it before it impacts you or your business.
And let's take a quick break. Good Morning HR is brought to you by Imperative, bulletproof background checks with fast and friendly service. If you're an HRCI or SHRM certified professional, this episode of Good Morning HR has been pre approved for 3/4 of a recertification credit. To obtain the recertification information, visit goodmorninghr.com and click on Recert Credits. Then select episode 201 and enter the keyword design. That's DESIGN. And if you're looking for even more free education and recertification credit, check out the webinars page at imperativeinfo.com. Among the webinars there, you'll find my 2 AI related presentations. And now back to my conversation with Jodi Brandstetter. We're using AI to detect those things. And this is a shout out, I've got on our website a recorded webinar called Remote Worker Fraud, identifying and avoiding remote worker fraud. And we talk about the North Korean scams, and they're stealing identities and creating avatars and taking these remote jobs. And suddenly you've got somebody in China or Russia or North Korea working for you. And if you're a tech company, if you've got remote jobs, you've probably talked to somebody and not known it doing that. So, um, but to battle that, we're implementing on our background screening side of the business artificial intelligence to verify liveness in a selfie, verify that, read the back of a passport or a driver's license, read the machine readable code, then take that photo from the front of that document and verify it matches using AI to verify it matches the person. So you're using AI now in that case to prevent the fraud. So it's always going to be probably an arms race between the fraudsters and the employers. What do you think an employer's responsibility is when they see they're going to implement AI and it's going to impact employees, especially when you think, it may eliminate some roles? How are you talking to your clients when they're trying to figure out what's our responsibility to our existing workforce?
You have to be transparent when you're going to be using AI, no matter what in HR. If you're going to be using AI that might touch employee data, that's super important to notify your employees about that. But also, if it's going to impact roles or tasks, you need to be transparent about it. It's going to happen, but the main thing is communicating it to your organization. And then the next thing is, okay, well, if those tasks are going away, let's say it's not a job, it's just task at this point, how can you upskill that individual for them to continue to have 100% worth of work time, right? So you tell them about it. So that's transparency, but then you also try to add some training and development to upskill them so they can continue to go down the road where, they're going to they're going to be able to do really good work for you. So those are the two things I talk about with my
Mhm.
clients.
Yeah, and the temptation, I think, is to say, okay, this person doesn't have the tech skills that I need for this new technology or the direction we're going. Let's go hire somebody who's got somebody who's probably younger and more experienced with technology who we can bring in here. But the problem I think with that is, first of all, you've just a business case, as an employer, you've already got a big investment in this person. You've paid to recruit them, you've brought them in, you've onboarded them. They've got institutional knowledge if they've been around very long. They understand the company, and them. They're a known commodity, and there's always that crapshoot when you're hiring somebody. No matter how good your hiring selection process is, some percentage of them, there's a risk that they're not going to be what you thought they were when you brought in, and so they may not be the known commodity that current employee is, and that's expensive. And so just doubling down on your investment there, sometimes it may not work out. I mean, there's going to be my first, and I've told the story on here before, but one of my first HR directors, when we first got email, had his secretary, and we called them secretaries back then, print his emails, bring them to him. He would redline them and then hand them back to her with responses, and she would type them up like it was a typewriter on a word processor and email them back. Uh, but it wasn't long before he was a dinosaur and was, quite honestly, made redundant, and there just wasn't a place for him, and even as a leader in the organization, because he couldn't model that behavior. So, where are you seeing the best uses? When you're implementing it, what are the most practical things you've seen employers do? Oh, and I think one thing we should do is, because we've talked about AI, and we should remind listeners that there's AI that's baked into software
Mhm.
like Indeed, or your HRIS system, all kinds of your applicant tracking. There's AI just baked right into those, and it's been there for a long time. We used to just call it algorithms, but it was still a learning, it was still learning. And then in late 2022, the LLMs were released to the public, and everybody freaked out and thought, this is Skynet coming to take over our lives. But the Chat GPTs, the Claudes, Perplexity, those things, and they're two very different sets of tools, but they can both be complete, filled with bias. So maybe pick one of those. Maybe start with the application side. Where are you seeing, if you don't have to name particular applications, but if there's specific kinds of applications you're seeing employers use that are really useful in any of the people processes?
I mean, I love that you talked about the current technology that they have has AI in it, because a lot of times what I tell my clients, or when I'm talking about AI, is first, maybe find out if you're actually fully using the AI capabilities of your systems, and ask your vendors to give you education on how to be using it, so that you're fully implementing AI just with what you have today. I mean, there's so many amazing AI capabilities in applicant tracking systems and HRS systems. I mean, we've been using them for a long time, right? Like I've always been able to, for example, like with pre-screens, if you answer a pre-screen a certain way, it can
Mhm.
actually put you in the process or out of the process, and then automatically send you an email, the thanks but no thanks, and all these things are doing wonderful work without us touching it, right? So we've been using automation, which is a part of AI, for a very long time. Um, but now there's even higher depth, right? More information you can be doing, more, pieces to your applicant tracking system. And yeah, Indeed has some, AI stuff that I've been playing with too. But I think it is practical to start with what you have. If you're a Microsoft shop, go to Copilot. You don't even have to go to ChatGPT. Go to Copilot, use it in your Microsoft Word or in your Outlook, and just start testing it that way. So, really simple, very easy ways to just kind of embed AI, right? Have Copilot review your email. Ask it to provide a friendly tone. In your Microsoft Word, ask it to like format it in an easier to read format. These are things that will help you with getting things done. Like I was talking, I think on another podcast, and I said something about like it's so powerful that I can have tools that can help me create all the termination documentation I need so that my time, energy, and effort is focused on talking to the person and really being there for them versus just doing some paperwork, right? So those are the things that you should be looking at, how can you use it today and what you use, any kind of technology you're in. And then outside of that, I would really start looking at, like, I personally find communication is the biggest area of like improvement we can have in HR. So I'd be looking at what are some different AI tools to help with communication. That could be through the hiring process, the onboarding process, even through the whole employee life cycle. Like, how can we use AI to really help us improve our communication and keep our employees or our candidates kind of aware what's going on?
And I think the using it for communication, whether it's using Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever to write documents, to summarize data, you're right. I think that's what most people are using it to the best effect for. But in a lot of things, it can give you a good third draft, right? I mean, if I
Mhm.
need, I was speaking in Oklahoma and, did a prompt to write a job, the key components of a job description, the key requirements for a job description for a petroleum engineer working in shale. And I knew nothing about that position. I've never recruited for that role. And I put it in there and it gave me a list of bullet
Mhm.
points. And I had a room full of people from Oklahoma. Half of them were in oil and gas, right? And I said, is this right? And I told them, I don't know, and it does make mistakes. So, and they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, that, yeah. And then that's where their eyes started to get big because they begin to realize, well, first of all, my hiring manager spent 3 hours writing the same list, and it's right here, and that saves a lot of time. And so doing that. What about if it's in Copilot and you're in your own Microsoft 365 sandbox? Your data is pretty secure,
Mhm.
as I understand it. um, I'm still skeptical just because I hate putting any PII or proprietary information up there. But if it's reading all your documents anyway in 365 and your IT people have blessed it, only do it once your IT people have said, this is our agreement. This is the arrangement we have with, this is what our 365 account says. But, you know, if somebody wants to start using ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, what do you advise them about PII and proprietary information?
Yeah, I mean, if you're using the free service, I really would be paying really close attention to what content you put in there, right? And there's a lot of ways to use the free service and feel really good about it, right?
Mhm.
You can be brainstorming with it. You can use it in a way where it's not, you don't put any of your company's information in, but it's still helping you with your day to day life, in your day to day role. So if you're using the free, that's how I would use it. Having the paid does give you some secure pieces to it. But again, I would be really mindful of what I'm putting out there. A lot of times you can even check to see if what you're putting out there is already online. So if it's already out there in the world and you're putting it in ChatGPT, you're not doing anything bad, right?
Right.
if you're going into ChatGPT and asking it to do some research on your company to help you create a better employee value proposition, and you're asking it to use your website and your LinkedIn, I mean, that is already out there, so it's not
Yeah.
like really like, private information. But I always remove employees' names. I always remove anything that I know that no one else can have or see at this time,
Mhm.
just to kind of build that in. And again, if you're putting an AI tool, let's say attaching it to your HRS system, again, you should be having really thoughtful conversations with that AI vendor, putting together, working with your IT team to ensure that everything is going to be secure and you feel confident in it. So, investing and looking at your stakeholders, and the smart people in your organization that can help you with that, make sure they're a part of that project plan. That way, you're not going to do something that's going to impact you, your employees, or the business.
And we do need to remember that Title VII still exists, and Title VII has something in the law called disparate impact. And I know the current administration has said disparate impact isn't really as important as it used to be for EEOC's guidance purposes, but there are cases out there already where employers are found liable for the biases that created disparate impact in their employee selection AI tools. And so you should probably be looking at, when you're testing, putting a fully qualified candidate who may, because of a unique name, or they played softball in college, which is often associated with females, those kinds of things, into your applicant pool to make sure they come out, so that they're in your results set. Because if they're not, that tells you maybe I need to go back and revisit how this tool is selecting my ideal candidate.
I think any technology that you use, you should be testing it at all times. I always encourage my clients that if they haven't applied to their jobs in a
Mhm.
while, go apply, because it's amazing. You realize you have old data out there, or things change legally and you didn't update it correctly. So it's the same with the AI pieces too. Continue to test. Put together a yearly, like, okay, we're going to quarterly test these technologies, we're going to check this, and have it standardized throughout your process so that you do test it consistently. And then you can see, oh, is there bias here, or is something coming off, or why does that picture have 12 toes instead of 10 toes, just though,
Exactly.
just making sure it makes sense.
And if you were going to suggest that someone start to play with one of the tools, one of the LLMs, and maybe for writing text or summarizing data, um, where would you suggest they start?
My preference is ChatGPT. She's been my best friend since like 2022. I love
Mhm.
her. I think we have a relationship. So that's always my go-to because I've just used it forever. But with my clients, I usually say, let's start with Copilot. If you have that in your Microsoft package, let's start there. Let's start secure and as safe as we can. And it has the same capabilities as a ChatGPT, just in a different interface, and with the Microsoft products. So I usually go with one of those two. I
Well, there
do
you go.
love Claude. I do love Claude. It's just me and Claude. We haven't had as long of a relationship as ChatGPT.
Yeah, I prefer Claude for writing stuff and taking a lot of data and just dumping it in there and saying, summarize this and write it up for me. I think it's it gets my writing style better. I think it's got enough of my samples in there. Maybe that's I've just trained it better than I did ChatGPT. But then if you've ever done it, go ask ChatGPT to write your bio from just what it knows about you already. Now, ChatGPT thinks I'm kind of douchey because when I read it, I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of ick." But then I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of me too." I mean, I get it. So, and it's not a bio I would have ever written about myself, but that's always good. It's kind of interesting after you've used it a while. It knows, it knew that I'm a yoga teacher. It knew that the kind of music I like to play in yoga. It knows I'm an HR guy. It knows I'm a podcast guy. It put all that in there, but it kind of sold it with a little too much sizzle, and it was kind of, yeah, well, that was a little creepy, but
Yeah, I have trained Chat GPT very well. It has helped me with my last book. It actually helped me edit it.
oh, nice.
And so it has that whole book in it to like really know who I am. But this year was my year of reflection. And so I each month have been really focused on who I've been in my whole life and being able to understand what's my, next step in my career or my life. And so I've been putting a lot of data in there about me, which has been great because now I can just ask questions and it really is able to just spit out exactly what I need to hear. Just because I have been putting so much data in it and training it to really understand me. It used to put a lot of adjectives. I hate adjectives,
Yeah,
like
me too. Yeah.
maybe one adjective per paragraph for me. It's really, so I had to train it to stop doing that. But really, that's one thing people don't think about with like a chat GPT or a Claude is that you have to give it feedback.
Mhm.
You have to tell them when it's working and when it's not working. And then you also have to be like, I didn't use what you provided me. This is what I used. That's how it's going to keep getting better, is that you're actually giving it continuous feedback, which I don't know. That's kind of what we're supposed to be doing with employees. So why don't we do it with chat too?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to be giving the feedback with technology just as much as your employees.
Well, there you go. Well, hey, we're up against time. I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining me today, Jodi.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. And then share this episode on your favorite social media platform. It really does help us reach more listeners who maybe we can help. And we'd love to hear your thoughts at goodmorninghr.com. Thank you to Imperative's marketing coordinator, Marianne Hernandez, who keeps the trains running on time. And welcome to Paco Corral, our new podcast producer. And apologies for all the uhs and ahs and you knows that you had to edit out, Paco. And a very special thank you to Steve Pegler at HR Strategies of Texas for creating our new 80s dance club vibe Good Morning HR theme. Thanks for the synth, Steve. And I'm Mike Coffey. As always, don't hesitate to reach out if I can be of service to you personally or professionally. I'll see you next week, and until then, be well, do good, and keep your chin up.